considering like the Latter-day Saint view to dating, what would be your tips on what's the right way to date with the intention of marrying, which we know that most Latter-day Saints sort of have. They go into it with a different viewpoint almost of, I'm kind of looking for an eternal marriage.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah.
So I think it's smart to operate under the assumption that most people are looking for marriage. And whether they come right out and say that on their profile or they're playing it cool and just acting like they're chilling out and just want to meet people, at the end of the day, when I talk to singles, it is very rare that I hear them say they don't want to be married. But how they're approaching it varies a lot. And when my clients are meeting with our dating coach, Elisa, she's taking them through the 5 stages of dating. And so in stage 0, that's when you're looking for dates. And then when you're on a date, you should have the goals be focused on where you're at in the dating process. So people tend to think too far ahead, the 5th stage being engaged and marriage. And so they, on the first date, often they're thinking, gosh, could I marry this person? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I like blonde hair or, I mean, silly things, but I'm not sure that I like that gap in his teeth, whatever it is, or vice versa. I don't know if she wants to get married because she has this great career and it doesn't even seem like she has room for anyone in her life. I don't even know if she wants kids, right? So I would highly recommend not going there, to stay in the moment, to focus on having an enjoyable, fun date and making the other person feel great by asking them questions, acknowledging them, validating them. And if, let's say that you really think you're not going to be interested in them and you're on this date, well, it's a great opportunity to practice your relationship skills. And because I actually do something with my clients called feedback dating. And so they go on a date with one of my professional feedback daters, and they know it's a feedback date, but they're supposed to act like they would on a date with someone they're really excited about. And so a lot of times the pushback I get about acting interested and excited on a first date is, well, I don't want to lead them on. And it's not leading them on. It's having an enjoyable time. And then it's either a yes or no to go on another date. Sometimes people are a maybe, but if they are a maybe, I would encourage them to turn that to a yes and go on a second date. It can't hurt. And especially if you don't have anyone or very many people in your dating pool, because at first you're going to be just going out casually with different people. And if you don't even have anyone else, then why not go on a second date? And so on the second date, progressing further, we recommend that you don't become exclusive for 6 weeks at least, because you might think it's a home run on that first date and maybe have the define the relationship talk right away. But the reality is you don't know that person. You haven't seen their quirks. You haven't seen them upset. You haven't seen how they treat their family or whatever it is. And you really need to slow down. It's all those endorphins that are being released that are clouding your logic. And so we recommend, date for 6 weeks, but still go out with other people, but be clear about that. And you don't have to make a big deal out of it, but you can say things like, hey, I really enjoyed getting to know you and I really want to continue that. And my approach to dating is to keep seeing other people until I'm exclusive. But if and when that we get to that point, I'd love to have that conversation. But for now, we'll just focus on having fun. And so people, they get way too serious. Sometimes people go on the first date and they want to bare their soul, share all their weaknesses, just get it out of the way, because if they can't accept me for who I am, then what's the point? Well, that's not really a fair thing to do because you don't have any kind of a emotional connection yet. And so there's no reason for you to stay because you don't feel safe in that relationship if they're, sharing all of their deep, dark secrets. Maybe you've repented of all these things. And let's say they ask about your divorce and it was a really ugly divorce, whether you felt like it was your fault or your spouses, you don't really want to go into that whole story with them. It's okay to share kind of an overview, like, we had a lot of challenges and I gave it a good go. And the end of the day, I had to move on. But that's a story for another day when we know each other better. And so if someone's trying to ask those questions, you can always assertively and gently redirect the conversation and say, hey, I'd love to share it with you. I don't have anything to hide, but I'd rather do that when we know each other better. And most people will respond to that. If they don't, if they get upset or pressure you, that's a good sign that they don't have empathy, and that definitely there's a red flag there. So my overall advice in response to your question is that you need to stay in the stage that you're in and not try to jump into the later stages of dating where you're exclusive, you're problem solving, and you're engaged.
Right. And going to before getting to this stage even, how does one spiritually prepare themselves for finding the one they could potentially marry?
I love that. So most people make some kind of a wish list of who they want to be with, right? Whether it's a top 10 or just like a journal entry. Well, the next step would be to ask yourself, am I those things? Am I kind? Am I attractive? Like reasonably attractive? Do I take good care of myself? And what changes do I need to make if I feel like there's a gap there? And so get feedback even from other people that you trust and who care about you. And they would be more than happy usually to share their insights. But you really need to understand where the gaps are and take that to God. Ask him to show you where the gaps are, especially if you're in a situation where you feel like what I am doing is not working. Something needs to change. So give it to God. Ask him to help you, but then he still expects you to do your part. So if you're saying, I hear this a lot, I don't want to do online dating. I don't want to go to singles events because I feel like my social anxiety or whatever. And I don't want to date anyone in my ward. I mean, the list goes on, that what they don't want to do. Well, what if you were a missionary and you said, I don't want to do tracting because I hate just knocking on a random person's door. And I just feel too fearful to do that. And I don't really like member referrals because, the members, it's really hard to get them. I mean, the members just don't give very many referrals. So it seems like a waste of time. And I don't like street contacting because, I'm just like totally exposed. I don't want to just walk up to someone. Usually they say no. So you're sitting in your apartment and you're praying for these baptisms that you set as a goal that month. Well, do you think that the Heavenly Father is going to bless you with that?